Wayne,
Yeah,
can you hear me? Is
yes,
it
I can
better?
hear you. Coach.
It's better this time.
Way better.
Wayne, you're live. Go ahead. The show started. Go ahead, Wayne. Wayne, go ahead. You're live.
Okay. So here's a memory from an NAB National Association of Black Journalists convention back in 1983. We were sitting in an amphitheater in New Orleans on a muggy summer night, and actor William Marshall was performing a one-man show as Frederick Douglass. And it was such a heartfelt performance. But we had one of these rich New Orleans meals, gumbo, bourbon bread pudding, and a lot of us dozed off on this incredible performance. But that was a long time ago. It was kind of funny, but it shouldn't have been funny. And as far as sporting events, I was in the room when it happened, when I was an officer of the National Association of Black Journalists, when several very accomplished sports journalists said, we're not being treated with enough respect and recognition. You know what? We'll go form our own association. And our president at the time said, no, 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 wait. Why don't you come back with an idea, a proposal? And they followed up, and they was like what I like to call the sturdiest branch of this mature NABJ tree trunk. So that brings us to why we're here today. I have two accomplished guests, actually collaborators, who wrote for our new book, Black and Golden, 50 Years of the National Association of Black Journalists, 1975 to 2025. So joining me today is Bonnie Newman Davis, and she is going to speak about arts and entertainment reporting and its task force. And we have Hamil Harris, who will talk about sports journalism. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Wayne. It's great to be here.
Okay,
Thanks for
and
having me.
welcome Hamil. I know he's online. So Bonnie, for openers, why don't you give us the elevator speech and tell folks about your career path, what you've done over the years to get to this point.
Sure. Again, I'm Bonnie Newman Davis, and I live in Richmond, Virginia. Currently, I am editor at large for Charlottesville Tomorrow, which is an online news organization that's supported by various journalism organizations and foundations. We're a nonprofit, and I've been with them for roughly 2 years now. Well, 1.5 years. And prior to being editor at large for Charlottesville Tomorrow, I was the managing editor for the Richmond Free Press, which, as we all know, sadly closed last week or week before last for good after a 32 to 34-year run. So everyone is really, really heartbroken about that. Prior to being at the Free Press, I was with the Richmond Times Dispatch and Richmond News Leader. And so going with a news leader is what sort of jump started my full-time journalism career. Started there in 1981 with a news leader. It was still separate from the Richmond Times Dispatch. And from there, I was there for about 20 years, in and out a couple of times. But I then went into PR, worked for Virginia Union University as university communications director, and after that got into academia. Worked for Hampton University as a Scripps Howard visiting professional, And after that, I went to Virginia Commonwealth University, where I spent about 7 years. After that, went to North Carolina A&T, which is my alma mater, and taught there as an endowed professor of journalism for about 4 years. And after that, I decided to move back to Richmond and taught at Norfolk State, and still sort of freelanced, but at the same time started working on a book, which is Truth Tellers: The Power and Presence of Black Women Journalists, which came out in 2022. So I've done a lot of things, been a lot of places, and I left out a whole lot of stuff in between. That's the elevator speech. But
Yeah, it's the elevator speech.
again,
Because you've done a lot of stuff. So
right,
to get right into it,
yeah, I didn't mention
it.
Creo, I didn't mention
Yeah,
blackamericaweb.com, which
yeah. Well, we'll have time. We'll have time for that. But to
okay,
get right into it,
yes,
the arts, the way the arts and entertainment journalists organized, you have an opening where it was a certain incident that happened that created this arts and entertainment group.
yes. So as you mentioned, I do write about the Arts and Entertainment Task Force, which I was a member of for several years, but I was not a member at the time it was created in 1993. Yeah, because it didn't exist. And what happened during that convention in Houston is one of the reasons that it came into existence. So, Bushwick Bill, the what was a 3'3" rapper who was living in Texas. He was at the convention. He was part of a panel that talked about hip hop artists in the industry and things of that nature. And so he was known for, his misogynistic comments and raps about women. And he had the audacity to bring that to the table when he spoke at the convention. And, someone challenged him, Karen Berry, I believe, about, his lyrics and his anti-women stance and his use of profanity and calling women different names and things of that nature. Bushwick Bill took issue with that and just fired back at Karen, saying some unmentionable words. We won't go into what he said, but I write about that in
I guess I think it involved talking about a certain garden tool.
the.
If we want to keep this clean, if people will get our meaning.
Different spelling, but if that's how you want to phrase it, yes, indeed. Women of the night, also known as prostitutes, various
Yeah.
connotations. But at any rate, that's what happened. The women in the audience, became very upset. Some of them walked out in protest. And
Many of them, Bonnie, because I had just arrived and it was like an exodus. And I had to stop some of them and say, what's going on? And they told me.
oh, yes. I don't remember that. I was there, but for some reason, I don't know. I just don't remember any of it except, all of the hoopla that resulted from it. And of course, as I write in the book, Sid Mel Estes, who was president at that time, our first female president, NABJ's first female president, um, also took issue with it and, demanded an apology from him. And he uttered an apology of sorts. He said, well, I'll start with what Sid Mel said and what I wrote. Enter NABJ President Madam Sidmel Estes Sumter, seeking an apology from Bushwick Bill. She's now deceased, as we know. Collins, and I'm sorry I said Karen Berry at first, but it's Karen Collins. Collins and Bushwick Bill, whose given name was Richard William Stephen Shaw, also deceased. So Sid Mel said, the first time my son refers to any woman as a, quote, bitch or hoe, that's the last time he will be in my home. She then asked him to apologize to these professional sisters, your sisters. Bushwick complied, sort of. He said, I apologize for speaking my mind and being myself. And if I have offended anyone for being myself and for speaking my mind, I hope you will find it in your hearts to be bigger than I am and to forgive me. End of quote.
Yeah, that's what we call the non-apology apology.
Exactly. So
But
yeah,
I think he stopped what he was doing because he was speaking. 60% of our membership are women, very accomplished women,
hmm
and the men in the organization wouldn't even think of acting that way. So as a guest, he was about to step on the third rail,
yeah,
you know.
yes,
But okay, that happened. But it turned into something actually more positive because a task force was created.
yes. Task force was created, as I mentioned before. Karen Collins, she became the first chair, with the thought that we needed to be the arts entertainment journalist in the organization, needed to be have something on their own that they could, wrap their arms around, be recognized for, and to bring industry individuals who came to the table, to make sure that they knew what we were about and to be more respectful of what we were doing. And not only just arts and entertainment journalists per se who covered those beats, but also, for the organization writ large, because many of us, we side hustled back then. For example,
Yes.
I was a city hall reporter and here in Richmond, but I also would freelance and write concert reviews or write about various artists, whether they were writers, artists, um, musicians, things of that nature, simply because it's something that always interested me. As a matter of fact, before we got on the program today, I was thinking about my history, entire history with NABJ, and having attended my first convention in 1980 when I was in graduate school at the University of Michigan. But that summer, I was working for the Ann Arbor News,
Yes.
and um, I can remember going to a concert, James Brown concert, and writing about him. And Bootsy Collins was part of that concert as well. I think James Brown finally came out around 3 a.m. in the morning. But
Wow.
so that was my introduction to writing about, arts and entertainment, so to speak.
Okay, so I want to just give one example because we have plenty of ground to plow. I want to go to Hamil in a minute, but one of the things about NABJ is that it doesn't matter where we go, what city we go to. What's a measure is the quality of the guests we bring to the convention. So could you, if you just picked one of many well-known artists who came to our convention, either performed or may have been on a panel or something, but I remember examples of them giving amazing performances. Who would come to mind?
Yes, well, first and foremost, I remember Harry Belafonte coming because I have a picture of myself and Janet Davenport, a former NABJ board member, seated next to him at a dinner. And so apparently, we all know Harry Belafonte with the voice and the acting and singing, all of that, but also as an activist. So uh,
Yes.
definitely him. I don't know what year that was, but it probably was like maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, because I came
It
off.
was 2001 in Orlando, which
Okay,
happened to be a convention I missed, one of the rare ones I missed. But he made
yes,
quite a splash in Orlando.
yes. So Harry Belafonte, who else? Ruben Studdard, Jennifer Hudson, all of the actors who were in the movie. Oh goodness, it escapes me now, but it's a well-known movie that came out maybe around 2011 or so. It was about
The Help.
the
The
help.
Help.
You knew what I
Yeah.
was saying about. I didn't even give you many clues. How did you guess?
Well, that's why I'm the association's historian. I have a lot of minutia in my head.
I was getting ready to describe the character. So yes, the help. So that I remember because so many of the actors were there and came on stage. But let's see, it's been so many. I list some of them in the story: Halle Berry, Spike Lee, Harry Belafonte, John Singleton, Pam Grier, Tim Reed, and the list just goes on and on in terms of some of the top-notch entertainers who, everybody, and not just arts and entertainment, but some of our own who are members, such as Gail King, I believe Oprah Winfrey. I can remember seeing Brian Gumble. So
Right. Well, let's do this because I know you have a wealth of stuff to talk about, but we're going to give the drummer some and bring Hamil in. So Hamil, talk about how the sports journalists finally came together because I remember when you were doing field reporting in Chicago, you had quite a story to tell about what you witnessed.
Well, the thing about it, again, good afternoon, Wayne and sister. The thing about it for me is coming in as when you think about sports, and again, we have often uh, kind of been invited um, to the table. And again, I think about my years as a reporter. I started off with the Black Press, the Afro American newspaper, and then I went on to the Washington Post, and then CBS News, and just different things as a stringer. But the main thing was just to be invited and to get in the door twice. What I mean by that, you get in the door with whatever you're covering, football, baseball, black colleges. But then when you went to the Washington Post, that was another time of being invited to the table or getting into the table and having access. But then you had to get the respect. What the black writers in sports had to do is go back to the beginning to get invited again. And what I meant by that is that just because you worked and got to cover Major League Baseball or basketball, and the thing about it was being accepted by your peers another time within NABJ. And the thing about it is that it's like the sports writers, and I got to know most sports writers like Michael Wilbon or people who Charlie Neal from Black Entertainment Television, but you were like zero or a cub within an ABJ. And so for me, and in Chicago, it was amazing how you see people that you knew from the post or from a game or something, but they didn't know you in terms of respectability within ABJ. So it was like starting over again. And so my
Wow.
story, so again, it's like sports writers were big in the industry, covering sports. But we all know that in covering sports or football, basketball, or whatever, it's all about relationships. And the fans want to see the stars. They don't care who you are, but who cared were the stars, were the NBA people, like Doug Williams and things like that. And so, and they would tend to talk as a former football player at Florida State. We know how important it was. You rarely saw black writers or black reporters, but then if you saw them, you would surely trust them more than somebody else who may turn your story, which is successful, into something disparaging. I mean, you
Yeah.
think about the Olympics. You think about what Deion Sanders has gone through with his sons in Shiloh. Look how much, and Shadur. Look how hard it's been to, like, you have to prove yourself every week. It just takes one reporter or somebody to disparage you to make you feel less than. So again, imagining being invited to the table for lunch or for the NABJ convention or anything, and they're like, "Well, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Why is he special?" So that
And,
was a very
let me
hard.
just interject, Camille, because you're being, you know, when you're such a good reporter because you're about the story. It's not about you. But I just want to make sure the listeners and viewers know that Camille is a top flight journalist, but he's also a top flight athlete. He played defensive tackle for Florida State University and
Those
played
I was
in.
guard at that time, and that's a three tick. And then nowadays, you say, "Well, what's the difference?" Well, a long time ago, the person that was a three technique, that's the technical term for the guard. You're in the middle, and again, I'm
Right.
trying to make it simple. You're in the middle in front of the center, so everything comes from either the A gaps, two A gaps right there. But then the linebackers, they stand between the gap because they want to make the tackle. So your
Yeah.
job was also to maintain this big wall, and unfortunately, or now unfortunately, the big wide person would be in the middle, who was usually low to the ground. I'm actually 5'10". So again, I was this big log that I have never seen someone over a 6 foot lineman yet. And so, but it's funny now because a friend of mine who played for Green Bay and the Denver Broncos, Alfonso Carricker, and he was all pro, and we talk all the time, and, because we're like brothers. But again, I don't look like the modern day NFL player, and I played for Bobby Bowden, and who was one of the winningest coaches of all time, and he would tell us most of you all today would not make it now in the NFL because you're wide and you're short and you're big and you're not that fast. And that's so again, me coming into
And you know this
NABJ,
stuff. See, that's why I wanted to bring that up because you're truly a student athlete.
that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true as student athlete. And then also I worked, again, I met a lot of reporters, that covered the NFL. And so that's a beautiful thing. But ask me more questions because sometimes, it's just
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's get to this, and I want to come back to Bonnie. So, and we have stills of some of the people, some of the sports journalists meeting, and it's a real. What you saw is a real brother and sisterhood.
yeah.
In fact, in my intro, I said it's the strongest branch of the tree, and it was something very telling you told me about the Saturday afternoon at the convention, which for our conventions,
Hugs.
we
Look at it.
we work and play very hard Thursday and Friday. By Saturday, that stuff is starting to wind down and we're getting into more of a leisurely party kind of mode. But you was at a meeting and you described it a certain way. And
Well, what I saw, it was amazing how, you know, it was like mostly men in the old days. Just like you see the brothers right there, one from Morehouse, and the other person um, from California, Terry.
yeah, Mike Terry.
Like Terry. And the thing about it is that they met their wives and their husbands and things like that there. But again, imagine being a sports reporter where you don't have access until they give it to you, but then you go to the NABJ convention and you meet your future family. But what was so emotional, how you saw people when they saw you only can really appreciate your success when you're in a room with other sports writers and other journalists. And that's when you realize, wow, we have come a long way. So many times the word isolation is really real for a sports writer because you're going to be a minority in a minority trying to talk to a minority. But then when you see the collective power of where you come from, that was what Chicago was about because you saw people who hadn't seen people or they have lost loved ones who are sports people. That's when it really became special. in Chicago, because as ironically, Reverend Jesse Jackson, just observing his passing, what did Reverend Jackson always say? I am somebody. You think about how he was a quarterback, that played football. But again, it was so easy back in those days. If you go back 50 years, to feel like a nobody. You think about the minor league, think about the Negro League. The institution of sports was set up to degrade you, to make you feel less than. And now we see how far we have come. It's like singing the Negro national anthem, And so that's what I'm talking about. Being in Chicago was very special to me, because I saw we, the people, who happen to be people of color.
Yes. Yes. Well, thanks for that. Now, I'm going to come right back to you. So, Bonnie, can you talk about some of the key members of the task force? I'll always remember the first time I saw Patrick Riley just get up and sing at one of our events at a banquet. And he sang Donny Hathaway's "Someday We'll All Be Free." And I mean, pitch perfect. And then we have folks like Gregory Dunmore out of Detroit. But I want you to talk about some of your peers and some of the special talents and skills they have in the arts and entertainment field.
Well, yes, certainly. Patrick Riley, who has worked with any number of celebrities. If you were to look at his resume or any of his social media, he will post these long, days long, longer than a CVS receipt, in terms of post about what's going on with him and people that he is covering or whatever he may be doing with various television networks and things of that nature. So he definitely has been one of the movers and shakers when it comes to being able to bring in some of these.
And it was nice that he gave us a generous shout out when you sent him a copy of the book.
Yes, he definitely did, and that was great. And so, excuse me, yes, Patrick, and also Greg Dunsmore, as you mentioned. Greg was that, how I got to know him being on the task force. He was very instrumental, as well as in, keeping us informed about the newest, the greatest, the latest, whatever entertainer or artist that we should have our eyes on. So in addition, there was Kelly Carter, who came in later.
Oh, yeah.
And, she really kind of moved things along in terms of getting some of the younger people involved. And, I have a real appreciation for her as well, because when I was teaching at A&T, I noticed that many of the students, I won't say many, but teaching anywhere really, a lot of the young people who were in journalism wanted to get into arts and entertainment coverage. That was their thing. And even when I came out of college, I wanted to work for People magazine, which was just getting its legs back then. And perhaps not considered a serious beat per se, but as we've all come to learn and know, arts and entertainment is a very, very serious beat. And I point out in the article the money that, comes from being involved in arts and entertainment, so multi-billion.
Well, and Bonnie, if I may, let me amplify that, because when I was in graduate school at Columbia, I had Professor Phyllis Garland, and that was her specialty. She was the arts and entertainment editor of Ebony Jet in New York.
Oh, wow.
But what she taught us was that you got to cover arts and entertainment seriously, not just because you want to be in on the fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an industry. So
yeah,
I'll tell you, we both talked for a lot of years. When I was at Morgan State, some professors would tell students, no, no, I don't want you writing about arts and entertainment, because it was sort of like, oh, you just want to be in it for the fun. But what I tell my students is, okay, but be careful of what you wish for, because now you're getting into serious stuff. And remember that you're not trying to be the talent.
Right.
It's not about you being the talent. It's about you covering the talent well.
Yeah.
So we try to make sure our students who are coming in, yeah, sure, you can cover that, but you got to bring it as if you were covering politics or economics or the so-called serious stuff.
Yes, that's certainly true. So, and also, some of the other journalists who were part of the task force include Jill Tracy. She's recently deceased. And more recently is Benton Blandon, who sort of took the throne after Kelly. I'm not sure whether or not Kelly is still involved with the task force, because I'm no longer involved.
But here's an important thing about that, Bonnie. Is Kelly still based in Hollywood?
The last I heard, she was working with ABC, but yes, from my understanding,
right.
Yes.
Because a number of our people are covered the Hollywood industry. In fact, Nikisha Moody, who was the top music writer for the Associated Press for many years, was editor of who was either Variety or the Hollywood Reporter until recently. So our talent rises to the top.
Oh, certainly, I would agree. And one of the things that a report, which I mentioned in the article, noted back in 2011, when the Knight Foundation formed a partnership with the National Endowment for Arts, the importance of having well-trained arts and entertainment journalists, because it not only, impacts or affects the major news organizations and their areas of coverage, but also, regional news audiences as well. For example, here in Richmond, because I was arts and entertainment editor, and we have many institutions where arts and entertainment makes a difference. And it also just, has an overall impact and effect on local towns and cities in terms of being able to attract people, tourists, that whole industry, and also for people, residents of those cities do. Now that I have a little bit more time on my hands, I'm always looking for something to do, whether it's here in Richmond or traveling to some other city or state. So yeah, it definitely, because it all once again boils down to dollars and cents. Yeah,
that's right. So let me jump back to Hamil. Hamil, can you talk a bit about the Sports Pioneer Awards? Either the Sports Pioneer Awards that the sports people have on the Friday nights, or if you want to take a crack at it, you can do either one. There is the Sports Scholarship Jam that they have the night before. And I've made a point, that party is so wild and raucous. I'm of a certain age. Students laugh at me if I said, I have no business being in that club with my advanced age self. So I just enjoy it vicariously from a safe distance.
Wild and raucous.
Yeah, I don't want to be scandalized by accident. So, but if you want to take a crack at one of them, because I'm endlessly fascinated by them. Camille, can you hear us? I think maybe we lost him for a moment. Okay, but I will say this, that the Sports Pioneer Awards, where they recognize the greats in professional sports, you never know who will be there. There'll be some years they're honoring NBA greats, NFL, Major League Baseball, Negro leagues, which has gotten a lot of attention, especially since Major League Baseball is now including the statistics of top Negro League players, just like the former all-white Major League, which is, that just didn't happen by accident. There have been many African-American journalists who were working those vineyards to make the case. It comes down to the power of the pen. So let's see. Emil, can you hear us or see us? Okay, well, we'll get him back. But let's see. Bonnie, before instead of me asking, is there something else about the task force that you would want to share? Because I mean, the fact that they're on the beat and they can reach out to the promoters, the agents, and get folks to come to NABJ either they perform, or actually they're on panels where they give us expert information about how the industry works.
So your question is there something else I want to add about the panels?
Yes, whether it's coming from the artist performing for us or actually talking about the industry and what things we should know about it.
Mm-hmm. I can remember Spike Lee. Probably that's my most clear memory of, us bringing in artists and entertainers early on. And this was one of the conventions in Detroit. Probably because
that was the Malcolm X screening. We got an advanced screening of the Malcolm X movie.
Yes. I remember that because everyone was in an uproar because Spike said, no child should go to school. They should stay home and go to this movie.
Well, he is a self-promoter.
Fuck school and go to this movie. And all the editors and everybody were like, what? But so I do remember that, and him being forthright about what it took in terms of getting that movie to the big screen. So that's one of my earliest memories of an artist or a filmmaker being there at our convention. It's just so many different moments, really and truly. Queen Sugar.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago, that may have been, was that New Orleans? I'm not sure, but all of the cast members came, and it's just, rollicking fun. I would describe it, because it's just amazing how many serious journalists, who are usually, reserving their time for panels and meetings and things of that nature that, could really have an impact on their careers or beats. But they find time to make it to these sessions where, these premier stars are going to be. And the excitement and the energy is just amazing. Like Hamil was saying earlier, to be among all of these journalists with so many talents, but to be recognized by these industry stars and respected. I think that makes a big difference. And there's a real familiarity. Sometimes when I'm around or among certain well-known figures, I am not as, I'm a little bit shy, a little bit timid, and I'm not really a timid person. But once you're in the room with these artists and celebrities, you just sort of feel the love, and you can, pretty much ask them anything, or say anything, as long as it's done respectfully, and they will engage you. I have a photo of me and Ruben Studdard and Anthony Anderson, and just
So, and that's true. I think we got Hamil back. So Hamil, just give me 30 seconds. I want to describe something. 16. we went to the screening. They bussed us to a theater in DC, and we saw the screening of the movie called Obama and Me, and it was a movie. It was an art house movie about when Barack Obama met Michelle Robinson, and they started dating. And Michelle Robinson was actually higher on the food chain than Obama. He was just this community organizer in Chicago trying to find his footing. But okay, they go out, and it was a very sweet movie. In fact, for our book, in order to make the pages fit right, I wrote some pull quotes, big type that jumps off the page. And I was describing how sweet the movie was. And I said it was as sweet as a double dip ice cream cone on a hot summer night. And as the movie was about to end, there was a young woman in the crowd. It was a packed theater. And she just yelled out, "That was awesome." And we were just giggling because it was just such a sweet moment. It was a visceral moment. This probably 20-ish woman just getting just this excitement out of this art house movie. And the actor and actress in that we started seeing them in a bunch of other
Was that
films
Tika
later.
Sumter in that movie? Tika Sumter?
Huh?
Was that the one with Tika Sumter in it?
I believe so.
Yes. And Parker Sawyers was the
Parker Sawyers, who has turned up in a number of movies. So the other thing about this, we get to see a lot of movies before everyone else sees them. They get tested on us because they want coverage. They want us to see if we'll cover it.
Yeah.
So that's a perk.
Yeah, Django. We were able to see that, and Reginald Hudlin was there. And even with Queen Sugar, getting back to it really quickly, I thought this incident was so funny with all of the cast members on stage. And one young woman stood up and said, "I just want to know one thing. Where is Ralph Angel?" And everyone just fell out because the character who played Ralph Angel was not in attendance that day. But I think that was the main question.
Maybe you was at this raucous DC moment with Terry McMillan when she did Stellar got her groove back in the movie form. So she was there on the panel with Angela Bassett talking about the making of the movie. And Terry McMillan can be pretty kind of out there. I'll just say it that way. Yes. So, but the crowd was pretty raucous because, there was some pretty risque scenes in the movie and, folks acted in kind. But Camille, I want to bring you back in if we can see and hear you and talk about either I had asked you to talk about either the Sports Pioneer Awards, what's that like, or even the scholarship party they have the night before, which is a pretty big deal. I could have sworn his is that I think I hear Camille.
It looks like he's not there.
Okay, well, we will we'll continue. Okay, one of those events, Bonnie, was we both served as editors for Tom Joyner's BlackAmericaWeb.com, his daily online news site. But Tom Joyner actually did his Sky Show at the of all things, the Unity Convention, where it was not only just us, but it was the organizations of Hispanic, Asian American, and Native American journalists. And it was classic time Tom Joyner. It was quite a party, the Sky Show.
Yeah, did it start as early as they normally would when he was on tour with the Sky Show?
It
Because
was it was at night.
it was at night. Oh,
It
okay.
was at night, and even a funny thing about that, as far as art entertainment and just having a good time when we're doing all the serious. Some of us have aged out because we get, we'll go to the party, but the younger folks are saying, you can sense that they're saying, will you folks leave, please? So this party can really, so they might throw us a bone and like they say, you need to clear out by 11 and then the real party's going to get started.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. I don't.
But we had our era years ago.
I don't recall being there. Probably because when I was working for colleges and universities, Tom would show up, and we would have to be there like 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's what time they would get
Oh
started.
yeah, you're right, because the show was in the morning. That's why. Yes.
But definitely, he's always supported us too. He's been to several conventions, which is great. Um, I remember him being in, I think it was Tampa, um,
Yes.
one year. Yeah, yeah, as well. He may have received an award, but he was there for sure. And
Yes.
yeah, so, but overall, the A&E task force has opened many doors and helped enlighten us and audiences, because I never returned to a newsroom without a story that, if not a story per se about someone I met or interviewed, who was at the convention as part of the A&E committee, there was something. There was always a tidbit that may have been mentioned. And for me, covering arts and entertainment in Richmond, like I said earlier, as a side hustle getting started, it was always ironic that many of those stories people would mention or congratulate me on, or say I enjoyed that story, as more so than a school board meeting or city council.
Yes.
And I was like, huh. But I get it, because even now it's huge. People, love to be entertained, number one, and even with sports, it's such a thing.
And
Everybody's into it to some degree, whether it's, the game itself, whether it's fashion, whether it's music, it's just all of that. And I think it just, goes to show how important it is to our overall being culture. And
right. And I would add that in the 21st century, arts and entertainment and sports is serious news. It's weaved into the fabric of all kinds of news. And a case in point, 2 years before the task force, the Arts and Entertainment Task Force was formed, we're in Kansas City in 1991 for the convention. And Kansas City happens to be one of the main cultural centers of jazz, especially when jazz in that era of Count Basie and others was America's popular music that was danced to. Big bands would play and people would dance. So it just happened. And I am a jazz junkie, but I went with a group of folks, and this shows why it's so important as news. Before we hung out that night, there was a session on music and the industry's music. And I particularly remember Brandon Marsalis talking about the problems artists were having because now we have transitioned from albums, 33 and a third RPM albums, to compact disc technology. And they said, well, the artists are getting a raw deal because the record labels are saying, just because we're converting the wax records to CDs, you don't get any royalties for that. And he was sounding the alarm that they were getting totally ripped off. So that was an industry story about how the music business was changing.
Mhm.
Now CDs are old technology, and the music is digital, all digital. But
Right.
okay, now we go to the nighttime, and a bus was rented for us to go see the original site where people like Count Basie and Big Joe Turner and Charlie Parker would jam and play music. But first, we stopped at a place that is their famous rib joint for barbecue ribs. And I
Mm.
remember we all ordered all this food, and we carried it out. We carried it on the bus, and it was hilarious. We just stuffed our mouths, but the bus now reeked of ribs and
Ribs and I hope some
Kansas
collard.
City barbecue sauce. Yes, yes. Now we go to our venue, which was a house where it was just really just a big living room. And they said in this room, this is where these famous Kansas City musicians used to jam on a Saturday night. And if you want to just imagine this is before we had FM radio, which is the preferred radio for music. We had AM radio, but the great thing about AM radio is it may have that crackly sound, but the signal is strong. So what they would do, they would set up a mic and set up a recording device, and they would play, and then they would play late at night. That way the radio waves could carry their sound across the country. And then it would get to the East Coast in time and into the ballrooms where folks could party off of their music.
Mm. Wow.
So that was just an incredible learning experience. It was also incredible that while we were waiting in the lobby to go, there was just this one local musician. He talks about being a Kansas City blues man. He starts playing his guitar, and then he starts playing this particular riff.
Mhm.
Suddenly, we're like tapping our feet, and then we just started getting up and dancing in the lobby. The bus stage. Oh, you never know what will happen. But
Yes, yes. Well, when you mentioned getting on the bus and being at night, that took me back to I'm sorry, Minneapolis. And you know what
yes.
happened then, right? We all
Oh,
got
you're talking about the Paula Madison incident?
No, I'm talking about us getting on a bus to go see Prince. I don't know
Yeah.
if that has anything to do with Paula.
Well, you tell your part, and I'll tell the other part.
Oh, well, it was just probably the best convention experience that I've ever had because I'm a huge Prince fan, number one. And getting to go to Paisley Park, I mean, that's just as, exciting and exhilarating as anything in life for me, besides my daughter, having my daughter.
Well, this
But
may not have been this may not have been at the Paisley Park thing, but somewhere when Prince was performing, he just reached out and asked Paula Madison to come up on the stage, and she was dancing with Prince. And Paula Madison, for those of you who don't know, she was the top network executive at NBC.
Mhm.
In fact, she ran the NBC affiliate out in Los Angeles,
Right.
and we were board members together back in the 80s. So you never know. But Minneapolis, and in fact, you mentioned Paisley Park. One of our colleagues talked about how when he worked there at the paper, he used to go to the club, the Second City. The Second City in downtown Minneapolis was the club where Prince and Morris Day and the Time and all those folks would jam, and it was live music. In fact, one of our beloved NABJ members, Eric Dagans, who covers, speaking of arts and entertainment, he covers television and film for National Public Radio, but
Right.
he is a drummer. So he plays music, and he once told me, he says, the good thing Prince was around when he was, because he actually plays music on an instrument. You know, in the 21st century, you have software now that can, if you're a mediocre singer, you can actually sound recordable. I've had to argue with people that said, no, you can't totally replace real instruments. Those of us that know the difference between, you know, a real, like a real acoustic bass or a real drum set. So yeah, we don't go for that artificial stuff.
Yes. And you know, I also think about, and you were with me, Wayne, when we were in Chicago, 2008, I believe, convention then, and we were hustling our behinds over to a blues club, Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
And,
you just never know.
got a T-shirt.
You just never. Well, I'd like you to do this, Bonnie, because look at the time. We are almost at the end of. Would you like to make a closing statement of just the importance of, you know, covering the performing arts?
Well, for me, it has definitely been a pleasure and honor to do so. To, you know, be able to have met and interviewed some of the greatest artists of our time, and now being in a position where I'm looking more into the history of a lot of artists and performers, and the fact that NABJ gave me that opportunity is just, you know, I'm just so appreciative, and to be able to write just a tidbit, a little bit about my experiences and that of others for this book, which is very important. And, you know, proud to be part of it. And I salute you, my dear friend and colleague, for pushing it forward. So that's really all I have to say at this point. But thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, and you're too kind. You're too kind, friend. Okay, so folks, we are winding down on episode 3 of Black and Golden, NABJ, 50 years of NABJ. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next week, next Sunday at our regular time, 5:30 Eastern time, because for our final session, we will have Ingrid Sturgis, who will talk about technology. And boy, are we wrapped up in technology. You know, consider how we're trying to figure out what artificial intelligence really means and how we're going to use it. And also what I like to call the knife fight that's going on among all these different streaming TV and movie services. So she is going to be here to bring clarity to that issue. And we will also have Gail Pollard Terry, who happens to be the wife of sports writer Mike Terry. She's a longtime news reporter and opinion writer, but she wrote one of the essay of one of the most difficult groups to organize within NABJ. And these were the folks who worked in public relations and media related fields. They were not full-time working journalists. And it took a while to include them in our association. And that has a very special, surprising backstory. So please make sure and tune in next Sunday for Black and Golden. And yes, we have a book, which is the Black and Golden 50 Years of NABJ. You can get it on Amazon. And please get it because they have copies available. And as Tom Joyner used to tell us, we got to move these kits. So go ahead and order from Amazon or order direct from augustpress.biz. Augustpress, one word, .biz. And with that,
Thank you.
so long. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a good one. Good night.
Good night.